Good morning. Now, this will be the week when you start your legal writing assignment. And I already have uploaded a presentation and a writing sample that was prepared by a very good friend of mine named Professor Gina Nerger. She's a legal writing professor at the University of Tulsa School of Law and is an expert in these matters. So fortunately, Ms. Nerger put this together for us last year. Now, what we're going to look at in this presentation is three things. We're going to look at legal analysis, what it is and how it works. We're going to look at organization and structure, and finally readability. And it's the combination of these three things which will make your legal writing assignment successful. We'll start with legal analysis. What you want to focus on is what's your objective in drafting this document? What is the ultimate objective of the document? What is the question that you are interested in answering? And in doing this, you will analyze a legal issue, inform the reader of a predicted outcome, what you would expect to see after going through this analysis. And the foundation that you stand upon is the law, expressed in legal rules. A law is a system of rules. And you get to a conclusion by applying a set of facts to the relevant law, or applying the law to a set of facts. That's how you reach a legal conclusion. Now, our basic concept in a legal memorandum is to explain the law and then apply it for each legal issue that we are examining. So the law plus the facts equals the conclusion that you should reach. Now, when you draft the memo, you're going to start with a statement of facts, of course. Your assignment will provide the facts, and then you will recite the relevant facts within the writing assignment. Now, people are often afraid of what to do with these facts. Remember, this memo that you're preparing is meant to be freestanding, which means the reader, the ultimate reader of this memo, may or may not be aware of the facts. So when you take the facts out of the assignment, you will recite that same set of facts back to me in the memo. The memo is supposed to be freestanding, self-sufficient, and it's the kind of thing that you put in a file, and then 5 years later someone can read it and understand instantly what the issues were, what the facts were, and what the legal conclusion is. Don't be afraid to just to take those facts, as I stated in the assignment, and put them into your memorandum. I would prefer that you rewrite them, but in any event, I want those facts in the memorandum itself. So as I said, in drafting the memo, you start with the objective. What is the overall question that is asked? And then what are the legal issues that you will need to discuss to get to that answer? And you take on the issues one at a time. Starting in this case with our writing assignment, which was about the employment at will doctrine, the sample assignment. And we start with issue number one, is there an implied contract? And number two, was the employee's termination retaliatory? Now, don't worry if you're not familiar with these concepts, especially in my international law class, because in that class we will also have rules that will need to be applied to the facts. Now, you want to provide these relevant legal rules for the issue. So starting in this case with the first issue, which was an implied contract. What does it take to have an implied contract? You will begin by establishing what is an implied contract. How do implied contracts work? And then you will apply those relevant facts, those facts that relate to implied contract, to bring a conclusion to the legal issue. And remember, relevant facts, when we talk about relevant facts, those are those facts that are in the fact pattern that pertain to the issue that you are discussing. Now, one thing that you can use, one strategy, is to use what we call syllogism. And that's when you repeat the rule language in your application. So we've already discussed what an implied contract is. Take those same statements and then apply them to the facts of the case. Remember, your application leads to a conclusion, so be sure to include that conclusion for every issue or element that you analyze. Now on to the second topic, and this is for me the most important topic, which is this is what I want to see. I want to see organization and structure. For a legal memorandum, organization matters. Now here is the headings essentially that you will use for your legal memorandum. These are the ones that I expect you to use. I expect to see these used and in this order. And the reason that we do that, again, is for consistency and clarity, so that anyone can pick up this memo and understand exactly where you are going with it. So here's your headings and subheadings, and use these subheadings in your legal writing assignment. Now, so we will start with the question presented. Now, on your particular assignment, there may be several questions presented. So you can list them 1, 2, 3 as you will. And then in the short answer, essentially what you're doing in the short answer is bringing the conclusion, which is going to be at the end of your memo. You're bringing that up front, because a lot of times people don't have time to read through your discussion and your facts. They just want a bottom line answer. And so in this case, bring the short answer up to the beginning of the memo. If that's enough, then the reader no longer has to read through your memo. But if it's not enough, if the reader's going to read through the memo anyway, at least the reader knows where you are going with the memo. Now, in the short answer, as you see here, I don't really like this most likely yes. I don't like conditional answers. What I'm going to look for you on your writing assignments is a simple yes or no. I remember once when I was practicing law, I gave my boss a legal memorandum, and I essentially said maybe yes was the short answer. And my boss called me in and called me on the carpet and said, look, I'm not interested in maybes. I want to know the answer. And that's going to be a yes or a no. So by the time you finish your assignment, you should be able to tell me what you believe the correct answer to be. Now, when we get to the discussion section, that's where we're going to do the analysis. And this inverted triangle here is meant to point out how we do this discussion, which is to say we start with the broadest possible area, and then we narrow it down throughout the discussion part of the memo. So in this case, again, the ultimate question is about the employment at will doctrine. And in this case, we start out discussing the employment at will doctrine. We don't get to the particular facts or the particular law until we drill down. So we go to the subheading of implied contract and then retaliatory discharge. Now remember, discuss the issues one at a time. So in this case, we had implied contract. There's a complete discussion. Then we had retaliatory discharge, and again, a complete discussion. Starting out with the broadest possible topic, for instance, in retaliatory discharge, another relevant exception to the employment rule involves retaliatory discharge. Then saying what retaliatory discharge is and what it means, and then taking those elements of the retaliatory discharge and comparing them to the facts of the case. So read through this section in the writing assignment sample so that you can understand how your writing assignment should look, your legal memorandum. Remember, your conclusion is going to be the law plus the facts that will lead you to a conclusion. And again, the conclusion should be something strong like this language: because the facts satisfy all three required elements of retaliatory discharge, Ms. Johnson's claim will likely succeed. And then at the end of the memo, the last section, it's going to be a brief conclusion, because you've already given us your short answer at the top of the memo, and then you've gone through a thorough discussion analysis, and the conclusion should just be a couple of sentences to wrap up what the memo was about. So the final topic, the final thing that we need to focus on is readability. And readability is important. Again, it matters, not just what you say in the memo, not just the substance of the memo, but how you say it. And we start that with careful proofreading. I can tell you that when I was working as a lawyer and I was depending on associates to write me a memo, and I would look at it, and sometimes there would be a typographical error, obvious typographical error, misspelled word. And what happens when you see a misspelled word is you automatically discount the credibility of that author, because you say, look, this person can't spell the word receipt or sees, or doesn't know the difference between your and your and your. Careful proofreading is important to add credibility to your memo. Sloppy writing results in a negative impression, and that's a negative impression not just of how you said it, but what you said. Sloppy writing, as I said, weakens credibility. We don't believe it quite as much as we otherwise would, because, hey, this person can't even spell a word. You can't run a spell check or can't run a grammar check. And sloppy writing takes away from the message that you're trying to get, which is to communicate the substance of the memo. So write as clearly as possible. Another problem that I have with students, especially on these legal memos, is they want to write it in a way that sounds smart, that sounds complicated. And so the sentences become very complicated, the wording becomes very complicated. And I want you to reduce the urge to do that. What I want is clear, concise language. One of the ways, an easy way to ensure that you write as clearly as possible is to avoid adverbs. Now, a lot of people, remember, adverbs are those words that end in ly. Adverbs, sometimes we think we're emphasizing a point when in fact that extra word is weighing the point down. So you want to write in a clear and concise manner. The goal for your memo is that anyone could read this memo and say, yes, I understand this. What I tell my students is to imagine that you're going to give this memo to your parents or to your grandparents, and write it in a way that your grandparents could understand what it is you are saying, even if they have no legal background at all, even if they've never taken a class similar to this one. Provide the proper analysis, explain and apply equals conclusion, and provide very clear and readable writing. Readability also means make the memorandum look professional and uniform. And you can see here on our writing assignment sample what I expect it to look like. 12-point Times New Roman font. Follow the spacing that you see in the example, things like double-spaced text, a double-spaced line between paragraphs and sections, a single-spaced heading. Create your headings and put them in all caps and center them. Remember, lawyers like uniformity, so we want to see that in every memo has the same look. Standard 1-inch margins, obviously, and number each page at the bottom center. And go ahead and number that first page too. Don't use the first or second person. Instead, focus on what a third party will do. We're not really interested in your position, whether you believe one thing to be true or not. Instead, we want to see, what would a court say? What would a court likely conclude by looking at your document? So try not to use the first person, because again, the memo is supposed to be self-sufficient. A person reading the memo shouldn't have to know you in order to understand what the memo is about. When you're proofreading, look for typos, as I said, misspellings, proper use of punctuation, proper use of the possessive, and as you can see, something as simple as the Smiths gives us a number of different possibilities. So go through that. Word now has a grammar check feature. Don't be afraid to use that in addition to your careful reading yourself. So in conclusion, what do we know? Legal analysis consists of applying the rule to the facts. Organization and structure provide the framework for your memo. And readability is important. It provides clarity and understanding to your work. That's it. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Send me an email or send me a note on Canvas, and I would be happy to answer you back. Thanks a lot. Good luck on your writing assignment.